Hello, my name's Jerry Kerr, and I am here with Jim Baca, who is behind the lens, to interview Mr. Ray Lopez for our Voces Oral History program. Mr. Lopez was born at the family home in Rowe, New Mexico on February 27th, 1932. The family moved to Santa Fe in 1947, and Ray graduated from Santa Fe High in 1950. A walk through his 92 years covers much of the rich history of Santa Fe and northern New Mexico, from the Great Depression through World War II, the Korean War, and to this very day. In 1954, Ray married Rosina Baca, and their union produced 6 children, 18 grandchildren, 34 great-grandchildren, and 4 great-great-grandchildren. So Rosina just passed away in the recent months, so we want to offer our condolences for that. But let's begin. Ray, on behalf of Voces de Santa Fe de Nuevo Mexico, I would like to thank you for allowing us to come into your home and talk to you about your life.
Well, you're most welcome, and welcome.
So you grew up in Rowe during the Great Depression and World War II.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what life was like then.
Well, Rowe is a small community to start with. Maybe, I would imagine if we had 20 families, it was too many. Population 35 or so.
Okay.
And we had one road through and one road in and out, same thing. And there used to be a mercantile company called Gross Cali, which was our source of food and
Dry
that
goods
sort
and
of
things.
Yes, all the services. That's the only one that was there. And we also had a train stop there in Rowe from the locomotives, where they had to stop and take in water and coal and that sort of thing to continue on to wherever they were going, east or west.
Right.
So it was very tranquil place to live. And
I would think.
I used to run around all over Rowe, for that matter. You know, a good I would say a good maybe 5 miles square. You know.
It's nice to have room to move.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we had tall trees. Very, very few industry. In fact, there was no industry other than that store.
Right.
And this was in my youth days. I grew up with an aunt and a cousin. My dad and my mom had to be out of state to work, to find work.
That happened to a lot of people.
But I was the most well-known kid in the block.
All right.
Sort of. My cousin used to work at that store.
At Gross Kelly.
So I had more friends than I had my pocket full of candy all the time. All the time. I was the first one to have a bicycle.
Nice.
Regular bicycle, or make our own sleds. Every toy there's available today, we had it, either made by hand or fabricated it somehow. And I don't know if you guys remember or hear about the ring toy. You take
the loops.
Yeah, the loop,
Yeah.
and then you have the wire.
Right.
You guide it with the wire.
We have a toy like that at the museum at Las Golondrinas that we talk about the American territorial period,
Right.
1880s, 1890s,
Yes,
and
yes.
stuff like that.
Well,
So
that was
it's nice to know they're legit.
Right. And then, of course, we played marbles. We played tops. I'm trying to think of other toys that we used. Or we used to have those milk cans, the pet milk cans. Put them in our shoe. Step on them, and what we call ancos. And then of course we had or we put a big stick, put a step on it, and get back on. You're higher than the rest.
Kind of like a pogo stick, but stilts.
Just stilts. There you go. Right.
There you go.
That's so. Those were our pastimes.
You had to occupy yourself as a kid.
By far.
No TV.
There was always something to do.
Yeah.
Always. And then the one thing I need to bring out, and it's very special to me, there's a mountain west of Roe. It's called the Picacho.
Okay.
That is well-known peak throughout northern New Mexico. In fact, the reason I brought it up because a cousin of mine kept telling me at the Capitol they have that Picacho on the wall.
Okay.
And that maybe somebody might read about it. I gotta go check that out. Well, that was one of my favorite. We had to walk about maybe a mile to go down to the river, do some fishing, swimming.
What about the caged bears? I was intrigued by that. Where were they? Were they part of the Arrowhead Lodge, or were they another attraction?
Yeah. Well, did I mention the oldest well to you the day you were here?
You did.
Okay. Well, that right in that area is where that oldest well is.
Okay.
Not was, is.
Right. Well, yeah, they don't get any younger, do
it
they?
might be the oldest well,
Right.
but it's there.
It's still there.
And I'm still trying to find out where I can find a sign to read the oldest well in the USA. I remember that as if it was yesterday.
I'd look in old postcards, maybe old postcards from the 30s or 40s. They might have those. What about Arrowhead Lodge? I wasn't really familiar with Arrowhead Lodge.
Arrowhead Lodge had...
that was in Roe or Pecos?
It was a tourist attraction, sort of, because of the oldest well, and also because of the battles that were taking place right in that area.
Okay, so I was in Glorieta?
From the Glorieta Pass, yes.
Okay.
Because that sits right there.
Right, okay.
In fact, right now there is a monument there, the unknown soldier, there in Glorieta.
For the soldiers from Glorieta, Battle of Glorieta Pass.
Yeah.
A newcomer to New Mexico, so I had never really heard of Arrowhead Lodge. So
yeah, Arrowhead
that
Lodge,
intrigued me.
It's been handed down for generation to generation, and they're always in the process of remodeling it for whatever reason.
You had mentioned too that you used to go over to the old Pueblo at Roe and look for arrowheads and pot shards and stuff like that. How far away was that from your house?
From my house, maybe a quarter mile, maybe.
Close.
It is close. See, we lived right next to the railroad tracks, maybe 100 yards from the tracks. But I had to cross the track, go through or something around the Gross Galley store, and down towards the Catholic Church.
Okay.
And then we had a school building right next to the church, which is no longer there. And neither was the Gross Galley Company. But anyway, we'd go down into an arroyo type part. And that used to be our playground. There was open country, but there is maps still today that shows Indian Pueblo.
Right.
But by that time, the only thing that was just the openings on the bottom, and you could tell where the rocks were built up.
Just kind of the footprint of the buildings
sort of,
and stuff like that.
And we used to just look for arrowheads and shreds and stuff like that.
Do you have any other memories of Roe as you were growing up? Say, what about during World War II? That your family ration?
Oh yes, I remember my mom using those book of stamps like airplane for gas or oil, sugar, salt, other necessities you had to get. In fact, at one time I had a book, but what happened to it I don't remember.
Oh, from
it
the old stamps from the rationing?
From the rationing stamps, yes.
They pop up every once in a while in families' collections and stuff like that. Did that seem harsh when you were a kid? Did it keep
No,
you
we
from
were
having
just.
things you
I was
needed?
just talking with my sister. She was born in Roe. She was only 6 years old, but when we left Roe to come to Santa Fe, and she remembered some of those things, and I was just contemplating the life that we lived was so tranquil.
Yep.
You know, so peaceful. Everybody got along with each other. If somebody was needed help, you know, with a farm or whatever, everybody was there to pitch. It's not like today.
No, it's not. But that's like living in the country, where
Yes,
people
yes.
depend on themselves and their neighbors
Yes,
for getting along through good times and bad times.
right.
Okay, well, you moved into Santa Fe, and you went to Santa Fe High.
Yes,
And then you graduated from Santa Fe High in 1951?
yes. 1950.
50, I'm sorry. 51 is when you went into service.
Right.
Now, when I was talking to you about your enlistment, you had a story about, not that the Army didn't want you, but they weren't quick enough to snag you. Is that right?
Right. Well, the Navy wasn't ready to snag me.
Oh, the Navy, I'm sorry.
Okay, the Navy. Now, I came back, all the examination, everything was ready to go. And they told us, this friend and I went, well, it'll be about 2 weeks, maybe 3, before we can take you. And I said, no, I want to go now. And I saw a big old sign on the wall, enlist in the Marine Corps. So I went upstairs. So I'll find out what's going on. I told him who I was, what had happened. And he said, well, we're ready to take you. And I said, when can you take me? How about tomorrow? Sign me up.
There you go. Ready to go.
Ready to go.
And so you did your training in California?
I trained in
And
San Diego,
then you were
California.
sent over to Korea.
And then I stayed two years in Camp Pendleton in California, training and those sort of things and all that. And then all over I think it was December or January, we got notices that we were going to be going to Korea. So that's all well and good. So we loaded ship on San Diego, and we went all the way to Kobe, Japan. At Kobe, Japan, we stopped, loaded or whatever they did, and the following week or so we got to Korea. It was at Incheon, Korea, and everything outside that ship was frozen stiff. I mean, totally cold and frozen.
I've heard about Korean winters.
Oh, harsh. So we unloaded, got all our gear, everything was fine. They loaded us in some of those cow box cars that had the slots on them.
Right.
You could see everything. Well,
Livestock.
they loaded stock cars and sent us up front. Well, we get there, I guess about, load them in the morning, we got there late afternoon. And of course, all the food and everything was being prepared for us to eat by the time we got there and all that stuff. So I remember it, if it was yesterday again, they had chicken. They fried chicken. And all of a sudden we heard mortars coming in. And all the guys that had been there before were scattering all over the place. We didn't know what to do or how to do. Come on, get over here, get over here. So that was my first experience.
New to battle, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was initiated into it real quick.
That's quite an initiation. So.
Yes.
And what were you were a rifleman, infantryman?
Yeah, I was with a weapons company,
Okay.
which consisted of rocket launchers, light machine guns, heavy machine guns, and at that time we had flamethrowers.
Okay.
And I was in a weapons company. When we were attached to a rifle company, then we had different duties, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Either rifle, whatever needed to be done. So at the very end, we had bunkers. online between the Koreans and us, and we had portholes that you could see through. And at that time, I was manning a 50 caliber machine gun. I mean, it was a heavy duty machine gun.
Yeah.
So every once in a while, we'd get shelled in or something, and we'd fire back, you know. But really, no major problem then. Just they over there, we were over here. At night, we would go out on patrol, and we could even smell them. We could smell the enemy.
Huh.
And we would back off and try to have an idea of what they were up to, pull back, and that went on, you know, like everyday thing.
All the way almost until the end of the war.
Until the end. Until the end.
So you were awarded a Bronze Star.
Yes.
And 2 Oak Clusters.
Right.
For your activities on the last night of the war. Am I correct on that?
That was the last night of the war.
Right. Can you tell us about that? How it came about? They attacked
Well,
the Americans, and you guys had to respond.
Okay. We were like in this hill, they were on that hill. And then, of course, the captain's bunker was in back of the hill, of course.
Right.
And we were manning up front. So we were
Enlisted men up front.
we were getting ready to go on patrol. So we go down to the CP, called it CP, and we started getting shelled in. You know, some, you know, sporadically, one here, one there, one there, one there, one there. So we were getting all instructions what to expect that night. Well, all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. Everything they had that they could muster was being thrown at us. That one hill only, not
Right.
throughout the line.
Interesting.
That one hill was really, really bad. Anyway, at the race upside, I would say a good 2 hours, maybe more. Well, it seemed like hell, you know. It's probably just a few minutes, but to us it was
I'm
hours,
sure. I'm
you
sure.
know. Anyway, so it subsided, and everything was maybe once in a while, one here, one there, and well, we didn't know what was happening up front. See, generally, the North Koreans would come in bunches. I mean, hundreds, blowing bugles and hollering and shooting, but we never had that. All we had was the mortars,
The shelling.
and the shelling, and they wouldn't stop. So they'd say, well, we need to find out what the line is up to, you know. And of course, we were in the back over here. We didn't know what was going up front. Is there any volunteers? No, nobody raised their hand. Hell no. And then at that time, I was in charge of a squad, 5 guys. And I said, I'll go on. I have to go check on my boys, you know. So sure enough, I volunteered, got all my gear back on, went out, and once in a while, like, you know, shells coming in and stuff like that. But when I got to the foxholes where the guys were, it was a slaughter. I mean, a slaughter. I don't think I've ever said this before, but I went to where my boys were, and none of them were alive. And I tried to pick them up, take them to the medics and that sort of thing. And I remember picking up both my hands went into his guts.
Oh.
And I said, no, this is not very good. By that time, other guys were out there helping. Medics were there, and we started pulling people out to the ambulances and getting back to the... Well, all in all, somewhere, somehow, some of the shrapnel that was coming in, that's when I got hurt on the arm.
Okay.
And after that, everything stopped. We must have been from here maybe, I would say, maybe from here to the bridge that goes to Los Alamos, from Palm John. That's where they were signing the
Right.
armistice.
Oh yeah, yeah. That piece.
And we could actually see the light from where we were.
Interesting.
So everything calmed down, and next morning was a shocker to me. The hillside where we were looking at during the day, trucks, men, women, and children came out of those hills.
Those were North Koreans.
It was I couldn't believe my eyes.
Huh.
You know, all those people living in there that we didn't even know. Officially, we couldn't tell them. You know?
Right. Oh yeah. No, I guess you find places to hide during war.
Yeah, they were good at it.
So your Bronze Star was for your bravery in going around the front, retrieving your men,
Right.
and the Purple Heart was for
Because of
the shrapnel
right.
wounds. Who put you in for Bronze Star? Your local officer?
The Bronze Star was, yes, our local captain.
The guy behind the hill.
Yes, yes.
That's
The Purple Heart came on later, and for years nobody was said anything. You know, my DD-14 said what happened to me. No, when I go back, when I got the Bronze Star, it stated that I was injured in battle and all that stuff.
Right.
Never paid much attention to that. I was fine by then, and everything was good. So let's say this happened I got out in '54, and I got the Bronze Star in maybe May or June that same year.
That
'54,
same year.
and I take it back. No, 52, 53, yeah, 54, late '54. I got the
Bronze Star.
And then of course it read, you know.
The Purple Heart took a long time.
The Purple Heart took a lot longer. I hadn't paid attention to it.
Okay.
I had never put in for it. Nobody had told me you're awarded, you should have it. Until later on, I went to the VA. I had aneurysm, and they did me fine and all that good. And then he said, "Don't you have a Purple Heart?" I said, "No." I said, "Well, your DD-14 here says that you were wounded in combat. You deserve that Purple Heart."
Yep.
So that's when I went to Udall. Senator Udall was in power at the time, and he sent me to one of his workers, you know. And the guy looked at it and said, yeah, you should have it. And I was working at the at the shelter for battered women at the time.
Esperanza.
And he said, "No, you should go." I said, No. Yeah, you should go. You earned it. You were there.
Absolutely.
And I kept saying, no, I'm fine. No, okay, finally, I went to see Udall. Within 3 months, I had word already.
Well, I think things like that are as important to your family as
Yes.
they are to the individual.
Yes.
More often than not.
Right. And so that took place, and they had a big shindig for the Purple Heart. And then later on, I was told that I was also, what do they call that? COPD, not COPD, it's
PTSD?
PTSD. So at the VA, I was already at the VA, and I went in for that. They said, "Yeah, you definitely are eligible for it." And he said, "But not at the verge that you can go crazy, but you still at that
Well,
point."
I don't know anybody who's not impacted by war, emotionally or physically.
Right. So I was awarded 30%, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I had been getting that compensation there for a while. And let me see, there was something I was going to interfere there when, After the meeting here, I'll show you the Purple Heart and
Okay.
all that stuff that I have
I'd like to
handy.
see that.
Anyway, that's the story about the
Well,
war part.
it's
Oh, before I go,
an
this is
interesting
very,
story.
very important to me. After the initial attack and all that stuff, everybody was quiet. We went back on reserve. Those were the worst years. Because we're going to go back on line. We're not going to go. We got to be ready. Got to be ready tomorrow. We're going back on the line. The Koreans are building up to attack us again. I was fit to be tight.
I can believe that.
Couldn't sleep at night. And being through what we had just gone through, I said, no, I can't happen again, you know.
Oh yeah.
So finally in December, about the middle of December, we got word whoever was eligible to come back to the States was coming back.
Good news.
So by far. So they told you and you get ready, we're going back. Well, after that was pretty much all right, you know. I survived.
Well, I think that's what everybody's hope is when they go off to war. My brother was happy to survive Vietnam.
Yeah.
You know, for
Yes.
the same reasons. So let's move on. After the Korean War, you met your lovely bride Rosina,
Yes.
and you were married in 1954.
Very.
And I won't run down the immense family that you have, but I did mention it in the beginning. You had 6 children,
Right.
18 grandchildren,
Right.
34 great-grandchildren, and 4 great-great-grandchildren.
Right.
So that must be wonderful to have all
Well,
that
you know,
family to enjoy.
Without those kids and all that family thing that we had, kept me going. And to this day, I say it was their reason why I lived as long as I did.
I can buy that.
You
Keeping
know,
busy is
it's,
a healthy thing.
It was so nice to come home, kids jumping all over you, and later on, after they grew up, their grandkids, great grandkids, up till the time that we took mom to Tomatoes in Las Vegas, we had young kids here.
Yeah.
Up till 4 months ago, we had little kids here.
And they keep you young.
And kept me young, kept me going, and I was happy.
You still have a smile on your face
Well,
when you're talking about your children
You
and
know,
grandchildren.
we were talking about it earlier. You know, I'm not depressed. I mean, I had this heart attack just a while back, and I said, well, I lived a good life. I lived a happy life. I did pretty much. My family never suffered for hunger or a roof over their head. And everywhere we went, we took off 4, 5, 6. Talking about taking the kids on vacation.
Yeah.
We had monogram suitcases, paper bags with their names on them. So that was a joke of the time, you know.
Well, I get it too. You know.
Yeah.
So having all this family has kept you vibrant. You've had quite a working career after you got out of the service.
That's
One of the reasons I think is you don't like to sit still.
exactly.
You know, you like to do things. I think you told me that right after the service you got, I could be wrong on the time frame, but you got a job at the MVD and decided that you didn't like sitting still.
Right.
So after that, you got more active jobs. Tell us a little bit about your work at the Old Pen.
Okay.
You worked at the
The
Old Pen.
Sit it right there in the middle of Cordova and
Serious.
St. Francis. Cerrillos is a little further
Okay.
down. Anyway, stone walls all around, and they had a catwalk where the guy used to walk with a rifle and all that stuff. Well, I was there maybe 3 months as a guard. This job came about. They wanted somebody to take over the tag plant where they made the license plates.
Right.
So one day the warden called me in. He says, Ray, you're pretty intelligent. You want to try the tech plant, you know? He said, it's only an 8-hour day, you know, off on the weekends, and why not?
No nights, no weekends.
Yeah.
Sweet, huh?
Yeah. So I stayed there a little over 2 years. And one day it got into my head, no, I want to go to California. So I called the wife and I said, yeah, pack up, we're going to California. Ended up in California, in Torrance, California. I had some friends there. And we were communicating, hey, come on now, you know, it's great out here and all that. Yeah, I gotta go.
Yeah.
So we got there on a Saturday and had a good time. And went Sunday and got my friends together. And I said, well, I'm looking for a job. This friend of mine told me, yeah, I know where, if you want a job, I'll take you there. I know my boss will be willing to hire you. And they won't. So I did. I went over there. This guy's name was Lunt, L-U-N-T, his boss. So my buddy's name was Jesse. Jesse told Mr. Lunt, this is my friend Ray Lopez from Santa Fe. Mr. Lunt used to be new people at Los Alamos.
Oh, okay.
So that it's coming
Been
to
nice
that
connection.
because there's a reason for this. So he says, what would well, I finished cabinet making. I'm good at mechanics. I have schooling in mechanics. I did this. I did that. I worked at the MVD. I know paperwork and whatever I could, mention. He said, well, when can you want to start? It don't matter. Whenever you're ready. I said, I'm ready. Well, how about tomorrow? I went to work the next day. On Tuesday, I was at work. So we lived in California for almost a year, a little over a year. My wife developed bronchial asthma. She could not stand in
The lower elevation
humidity.
and the humidity.
And the weather there. So half of the time I had her at the emergency rooms or so finally decided, no, we can't do that. I said, gotta go back to New Mexico, go to a dry climate.
Yeah.
So we did. She came back. I stayed for another month. This guy, Mr. Lund, tried to help me get a job at Los Alamos. He knew some people at Los
Good
Alamos.
for him.
But that never materialized. But then, nonetheless, came back, no work in town, and I was looking everywhere. I'd even take dishwasher if I had to, but there
You had
was
a
no
family
work.
to support.
There was no work.
Yeah.
So I knew a guy that was working at the pen, at the new one.
The new one.
Yeah.
Upward.
And he said, Ray, they're hiring over there now. I'll go see the warden so-and-so. I said, I want to go up there. Next day, I was back at work. Because all the experience I had, the experience I had with the old pen, and they needed people.
Oh, yeah.
So I worked there till 1969. That's when I applied for a job at Los Alamos Fire Department. And that took 4 or 5 months. Then I got the job at Los Alamos. Went up there as a fireman for the Department of Energy. After a few years later, maybe 11, close to 12 years, I had a heart attack.
When you were a fireman.
Yeah, I was a fireman.
Right.
So I couldn't go back as a fireman, but in the meantime, I made friends at the lab. And I used to work at the lab once, on and off, once in a while, And so after the heart attack, I was home maybe 2 months. So they called me from the lab. This friend of mine said, Ray, there's openings at the lab. You want to come work at the lab? Sure. I needed a job. I had little jobs here and there, not much, but kept me going. So I went with the lab, and I stayed with the lab from 80 to 93. In 93, I retired from the lab with a retirement, and I was eligible for my Social Security.
Right.
So I said, well, with that I can get by, you know. So happened that being that I had annuity from the fire department, I was getting 3 checks. Annuity from the fire department, retirement from the lab, and Social Security. So I was doing fine. I could not stay home. I could not
I
for the
don't think
world
it's
stay
in your
home.
personality. Yeah.
And I had 3 or 4 jobs every day. Call me there, call me there, call me there, call me there. So one day, working, I went back to it. When I retired, a couple of months later, at N Division in Los Alamos, I got to know pretty much everybody, you know, the bosses and everything else. And they called me, said, Ray, what are you doing? Not much. I said, busy here and there. He said, but how would you like to come back to work as a part-time? Hey, that sounds pretty good. I said, on my own terms, I said. Now, I was a little bit wiser by
Well,
then.
at that point, you could,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, you had that power.
He said, yeah, pretty much. So I said, nah, okay, I'll go. So I went. I went to work part-time. 12 more years at the lab. So in 2004, Congress or the House, somebody passed a law that you cannot draw money from the Department of Labor from the same job,
Okay.
like retired and
The
part-time.
double dipping.
Right, double
Yeah.
dipping.
Yeah.
It's okay. So, but in the meantime, I made friends part-time that when I left, he said, Ray, if you need a job, come, I've got work for you all over. I met this real estate agent.
Frank Gomez?
Yeah, no, the Frank Gomez was a little job between.
Oh, okay.
I went to work for Shell McKenzie,
Okay.
and Shell was with, what's the name of the real estate agency? Anyway, this guy by the name of Dell, he was going to move back to Washington. And he says, Ray, you're busy. I need somebody to come and help me at the house, get it cleaned up and ready to go. And sure, I'm not doing that. I said, I'll be able to help you. So in the process, I'm going to help him. Shell comes into the picture. Shell is the real estate agent that was selling houses all over Santa Fe. And in conversation, he said one day, he said, if you ever need a job, let me know. You're a pretty good worker. Oh, yeah, I said, that'll be fine. If you need me, I said, call me. There we go again. Every other day, you're great. Are you busy? No, come this and that and the other. Then I was working at this particular job up at on the road to the old dump in Santa Fe,
Okay.
Alamo Drive, right in the area. And this lady, director of the Esperanza shelter, called me over. Mister, come here. Can I talk to you? I said, sure. I said, I see you coming to work every day and you do a job all day long. He said, you're on the job all the time. Yeah, I said, I commit to a job, I stay with it till I get it done. So sure enough, she said, how would you like to have a part-time job? I said, well, not really, I said, but where is it? I said, well, I'm the director and the board of directors for the Esperanza Shelter for Battered Women. I never heard of that. Well, let's try it. So she told me, give me a resume and a resume. I went to the back room, got me a bag, grocery bag, cut it in half, put my name, and I gave it to her.
Handwritten resume on a grocery
and
bag.
a
There
paper
you go.
bag. And they're not going to call me. I'm getting old. And sure enough, 2 or 3 days later, we have an interview for the job at Speranza. Okay, here I go. By this time, I guess I'm getting wiser. I don't know. I walk into that office on Agua Fria, and I introduce myself, Ray Lopez, and so forth. And then I went, oh, okay. It's like I own the place, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I said, they're not going to hire me. Or he thinks it's better. Or, I didn't think I was getting hired. I was telling me, well, at the interview, he says, well, we have several other people that we need to interview. But right now, we might go with you. Might, depending. It's fine. Well, man, I have work. I have no problem. So a couple of days later, and here we go. They went to interview again. This time with a higher up. And of course, they had already talked this and that and the other. And he said, well, when can you work? When can you start? Yeah, I got to give notice that 2 or 3 days maybe. I said, that'll be fine. Okay, start on Monday. So I went back Monday. They told me, oh, what's your priorities? And I said, first of all, I'll give you 3 years of my life. I said, I'll work for 3 years, but I'm my own boss. I said, what I want done, I wanted to do it right. So, no, hey, you're the boss, you know, part-time.
Right.
But every time I wanted
While
to
you're
go,
there.
while I was there, I was the boss. And then, so I went in, gave my priority. First, I need to know your power, your electricity, your gas, everything that has to do with safety. Well, I knew that all along, but I gave him that crybaby thing. So he said, oh, good, I like that. Well, what else can you do? You name something that I'll tell you if I can or not. There's nothing they told me that I couldn't do.
There you go.
Well, you have to take care of the vehicle, you have to do this, you have to do that. And sometimes, being that I was bilingual, they would call me in and say, what do these people want? You know, because there's a lot of immigrants. And I would tell them, you know, this is what they mean, and they're sort of for it. So I would help them there. So every time something would come up, I would make it a little better. The lighting, for example, in the room was, some of those emergency lights weren't working. Try to make it livable and
Absolutely.
Safety.
Yeah.
That was my main concern.
They were there for their safety
Yes.
as well. So
Yeah, by far.
Absolutely.
So anything that they would come up with and say, "What can you correct that?" But if I can correct it, I'll find somebody who will correct it. Like the roofs were starting to leak, and that's a major job, you know. I said, "No, well, I know somebody that can come and do it for us." I go talk to the guy. I say, "Yeah, I'll give you a good price." I said, "Well, we'll have to go through the county, because it was a county thing." Sure enough, had everything done. So at the end of 3 years, I said, well, they threw me a big old party, and all well and good. Went to the party, came home, maybe a month. I give it a month, because by that time they had a young guy in
Right,
there.
after your retirement.
After I retired the first time with 3 years. And can you come and help us? Sure, I'm not doing anything anyway. So I go. And said, after a few days, you know, why don't you stay another while, you know? And okay, I'll tell you what, I still felt good.
Yeah.
I could see good and drive good. I'll give you another 3 years. Oh, well, good. Gave me a raise, another party, and I went back to work. Well, as time went by, things got to where sometimes I could see good, sometimes I didn't see that good. So at the end of those 3 years, I was still pretty active. And this is the third time. I said, well, I'll give you 3 years. I said, if I can keep the way I am, healthy as I am. Well, it lasted 3 years. Then at the end, I couldn't even put on the bulb.
Well, that was what, 2018?
2018.
And you were 86 years old, retiring for your third time.
Last day.
And I think that needs to be stated
Yes.
again. 3 retirements, and you didn't really give it up until you're 86. It's just an indication of how you like to work, how you like to get things done properly, and
Right.
and you like to stay motivated. So let's jump off your work history a little bit and talk about what you like to do in your own life, if you have any time left, besides your family. Did you have any hobbies, recreational hobbies?
I could count the days before hunting season come around. Get prepared, get ready, and all that sort of thing. And I must have hunted for at least 50 years.
Where were your favorite places to hunt?
Mainly Barillas or in Pecos.
Okay.
There's a place Barillas way up there. And then from there, even in Buckman, when I was a little younger, I used to go to Buckman, drive to Buckman, kill my deer, come home.
Stayed pretty close to home.
Yeah, I didn't have to go far.
Right.
So, but then we started moving around and all the time. Got the job in Los Alamos. I lived here. So Buckman, I didn't like it that much anymore. So friends of ours started going out to Barillas. Well, that got kind of scarce, and we ended up going to Chama.
Okay.
On the road to past Chama, you get to a place called Cruz Basin. It's a big elk country. Beautiful, beautiful country up there. So that's where we ended up. After that, the rest of our life was hunting that Cruz Basin.
Did you butcher your own meat for the most part? Did you take it to a butcher?
With what?
Did you butcher your own meat? If you had an elk or a deer?
Oh yeah, well, we used it.
Yeah, that's what I would have assumed.
Either we used it at home, or we'll distribute it around the families. You know.
You grew up in an era when people knew how to do that.
Oh yeah. I used to like the dried jerky. Deer is the best dried jerky you can buy. And then it went into elk. It's all right, you know, but not like deer.
Elk makes good sausage.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, that's it. It's pretty much that the last few hunts I had was up in Chama.
It's pretty up there.
And
it's very pretty.
I think we visited all the lakes around here.
Yeah.
All the way into Colorado, down south to Quemado.
For fishing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So every once in a while we take a fishing trip and stuff. In fact, this last outing that we had, I had those 2 heart attacks prior to going on Father's Day. I didn't think much of it. It happened outside. I felt like pressure on my chest.
Yeah.
So I was just picking little weeds. Yeah. Nothing. Not like I used to work, you know.
Right.
So I was tired, man. So I leaned up against the truck and no, I said, better go in. So I came in and it subsided. A week later, the day before we went to the Father's Day in Chama, what's the name of this? Meadows, what's the name of that lake?
Up near Las Vegas?
No, it's in Colorado.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, you'll come back in a minute. Anyway, the day before, the day that we were supposed to drive up there to Chama, to check in, I had the same thing. So I came back from outside, came in, and I sat down, fine again. So my son and his family came in and said, ready to go? Yep, we're ready to go. So we took off, we went, and we toured that whole mountain all afternoon. No problems. In the car, you know, I told them, well, we used to hunt there, we got a deer there, and I'll go over there, and there's a place that has like a teepee made out of human made, a teepee, and we called that the sheep herder's teepee.
Okay.
And every year that we go hunting, I'd go by there. I never went inside. So that day, I told my son, I said, "Send me up to the teepee." So he did. And you can stand up in that teepee. It was, you know, you could see where the smoke and all inside that teepee was
From
in the
fires.
ground and
Yeah.
everything.
Interesting.
I didn't know there was here. So we toured all of that, came back, went to had dinner, went to bed. Next day, I telling my daughter, you know, what happened. And the reason I didn't go fishing that day was there was a board across a part of the river, of the lake, I should say. And I said, no, I don't want to take a chance to fall off that board. You know, I think I'll just sit back here and relax. So I did.
Right.
And everybody was surprised. Hell, you'd be the first one out there.
Well, that would be in your nature, wouldn't it?
Yes,
For the most part.
yes, the first one out. No, I said, okay.
Well, you mentioned touring that mountain and that whole area. You like touring, don't you? Didn't you go on a around the United States trip?
Yes.
With, I'm not sure I remember who you told me you went with, but it sounded like a
Okay.
really nice trip.
A friend of mine called Joe Romero and his wife Rosina, we were friends here in Santa Fe, and we worked together at the pen
Okay.
for years. So one day he decided to go to California. We stayed friends and so forth. And so he moved out to California, lock, stock, and barrel, kids and all. And all our kids were small still. So we became friends, and every time he'd come, every summer, he'd come into town. The first guy he called was me. He said, I'm coming down. He used to call me Primo. It was like a cousin, but he was no cousin. But we were, I had
You were like cousins.
Yeah. Anyway, we take off for 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
Up in the mountain, pack a case of beer,
Yeah.
and a quart of whiskey. And we'd be gone for 2 or 3 days. Nobody would see us. So they came back all happy, beard and all this.
All happy.
And that went on for years,
Yeah.
years and years. So one day in conversation, he says, Compa used to call me, Compa, we are going to have to take a trip around the USA. I'm in for it. I said, whenever you retire, I said, I'm ready. So about a year or two later, he retired. He just turned 65. And by that time, we knew all of northern New Mexico. Every year, we go someplace different. So he said, well, let's go. And I had bought a pop-up camper. We'll take my camper, I said, in case we need a place to sleep or stay. Or if not, we'll just get a motel, stuff like that on the way. Not knowing that for how long we were going to be gone. So we left in July. He had a daughter that lived in Texas. So we went down to Texas from here, all the way to Texas, spent one night in Texas, and there they have what's called a water bug. They're this big. They're cockroaches, but that's how they are. But they're called water bugs.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, no, my wife said, I'm not going to stay here. So we took off from there. We went into Mississippi.
Probably more water bugs.
In Mississippi, they had a friend in Mississippi, so we stayed there 2 days, and it took us all around Mississippi, all the mansions and all the
Oh yeah.
people with money, you know, and showed me all around Mississippi. So from there, no, before we get there, we went through Florida.
Okay.
Florida, and then we went to Cape Canaveral, and then we went into Alabama. We visited the USS Alabama,
In Mobile.
yeah,
Yeah.
the big canyon on it, and then from there we went to where was the one place I'll never forget, south of the border.
Oh, in South Carolina. Yeah, yeah. Nobody can forget that if they ever drove by.
Oh, let me tell you, we kept seeing. It's not like that.
You see it for hundreds of miles. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I tell you, it's a all those signs, you know, south of the border. It's not like those signs I'm telling you about the oldest well.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Same thing.
Or Barbasol.
Yeah. So finally we got there. Sure enough, it was old Mexico. That's what it was, and we laughed and had all kinds of good times. And then we went to North Carolina, and in between we went to Georgia. What other places?
Did you go to Washington D.C.?
Oh yeah, we went all the way to Washington D.C. We visited the Statue of Liberty, and we wanted to eat lobster. So you know where we had to go there?
You had to go to Maine.
To Maine. So we went to Maine, Massachusetts. Later on, he had a daughter that lived in Massachusetts. So we stayed at her house a couple of days. From there, we took the train to New York City. After getting to New York City, we went to Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
That's a sight to see. And then
Yes,
from
it is.
there, we went to Mount Rushmore.
Sweet.
And other big, of course, all the Michigan and all those corn places, fields for miles of corn, miles and miles.
Yep. That's
all-
the
all
great
the,
Midwest. Absolutely.
The people in their little wagons, what they call those
Those are the Amish people?
yeah,
Yeah.
garden
Those-
people, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and then from there, Mount Rushmore, we were going to go Yellowstone. So, in Yellowstone, my friend got really sick.
Wow.
He says, "Compa, we better go home." I said, "I don't feel good." I said, "No problem." That night, I drove all night to come across from Yellowstone, from Mount Rushmore to across Wyoming, ended up in Casper, Wyoming.
In the middle of the state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they stayed in a little while. We just rested because I drove all night. From there, we came into Colorado, and back home. Well, he lived 4 months,
Joe Romero.
and he died.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I guess
Yeah,
it
of
was
course.
nice that he
But
had
we-
that opportunity to tour with
We
you.
had a time. We have an album, all the places we visited, and he was a character. He liked to laugh. If you didn't want to laugh, he'd make you laugh.
Understood. Yeah, we all miss our friends that have
Yes.
gone our way. Anything else that you want to share with us about your life? You were the part of the DeVargas committee for
Okay.
the Fiesta in 1969.
Asked to be in the DeVargas staff in 1969.
Right.
Don Diego DeVargas was at that time not a friend of the family. Was we knew each other. His name was David Segura. He was Don Diego DeVargas, and I was just a caballero, you know. Oh, we've had party all over the state.
That's right. You get to travel on the state's dime, or not the states, I guess.
Yeah. We went to Las Vegas, Taos, Albuquerque, Los Alamos, everywhere.
Yeah.
We visited the most of the churches in town, and so we had a great year.
Yeah, the history's important, and to see people representing the history is important.
And then my kids were small then. They were the angels, you know, the running around before they fire the Sobra.
Oh, okay, the Gloomies.
Yeah.
The Gloomies.
Yeah, the Goonies.
Gloomies.
Gloomy, yeah, okay.
Gloomies. Old Man Gloom and the Gloomies.
Yeah, yes, all
Yeah.
those. And so that was a good job. From there, trying to think what else. Of course, Los Alamos area was my backdrop right there.
Yeah.
Every little Christian corner I knew in back of Los Alamos.
Well, you worked for the lab, you worked for the fire department, you spent a lot of time up there.
Right.
They called you back after you retired,
And then
so
some.
that makes a lot of sense
Yeah.
to me.
I was there for the big fire where they lost all the homes. I was part-time then.
Well, that must have been pretty frustrating as a fireman.
Very, very much, yes.
to be involved with that.
Evacuated the whole town, and just the people that had to be there because of the nature of the work.
Right.
Otherwise, everybody had to leave. And then to see so much destruction.
Yeah.
So much destruction.
We get reminded every year with our forest fires.
Yes.
You know, Rio Doso's
Yes.
going through that. Well, I want to thank you for sharing your time and your stories and your wisdom with us.
And you're welcome.
It's wonderful to
Welcome you.
spend time with someone who has such a rich life
Yeah,
and a nice family to support you now
Right.
that you've supported
Right.
them all your life.
Leave me your name and number, because I'm going to try to come up with pictures
Oh, okay.
of how we've talked about,
Okay.
and I'll send them to you, so maybe you can use them in your show.
Well, Robin has my email,
Okay,
so
that'd
if
be
there's
enough.
things she can take photographs
Yeah,
and
that'd be
email them
enough,
to
yeah.
me.
That's it. I want to
That'll
make
work.
sure I told you, because I was a camera freak. Oh, I love to take pictures.
Well, visual aids always help. I
Yes.
work at a museum, and I feel a whole lot better when I can talk to people about stuff they can
Yes.
see.
Yes.
You know, so
And,
I would appreciate that.
Everything to me was different, you know. And if something looked different to me, I take a picture.
Absolutely.
Or mountains.
Well, that's your curiosity
Yes.
as well as your
Yeah.
need to do things.
Right.
You know. Thank you, Ray.
You're
It's been
welcome.
a great talking to you, and we'll be
it
in
was my
touch.
pleasure to have been able to talk to you. And anytime you're around, feel free to stop by.
You still have a strong hand grip.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Mr. Baca.
Mucho gusto a
It's the same thing
conocerlo.
here. Gracias.
Dios te
When he
bendiga.
hung my hand, shook my hand when I was down here the first time. I had just shaken hands with a Navajo the day before at the museum, and he just they present their hand, and he's got this strong grip like my dad had. So I can appreciate that.
Yeah, we